The movie begins with a gunshot. The wind is howling, and we hear a woman panting as she hurriedly gets into her vehicle. She starts the engine and drives through a barren and desolate land. It looks like acres and acres of desert, with no one in sight. It appears as if the world has been destroyed by an apocalypse, leaving nothing but infertile land and destroyed buildings in its path. The name of this woman is Juliet, and she suddenly stops her rusty vehicle when she sees a junkyard of cars at a distance. She exits her vehicle to check the isolated cars for any sign of life, but finds only a skeleton and rotten flesh. She then examines the inside of the vehicle for food or any other useful items, but finds nothing. As a last resort, she checks the fuel tank, but it's empty as well. A dejected Juliet has no other option but to move. She continues her journey through the rough terrain, while carefully searching her surroundings. After driving for hours, she comes across a destroyed gas station. She loads her gun and prepares to enter the deserted place. In order to survive, she must find something, so she takes calculated steps and enters. With each step, her heart is pounding, and fear is gripping her chest. She checks the refrigerator and cabinets, but finds empty cans and bottles. With a sigh, she sits on a chair and contemplates her life, but her moment is interrupted by loud thudding and banging on the roof of the building. Suddenly, she hears the growling and hissing of a creature, so without wasting any time, she leaves the gas station. In her vehicle, Juliet communicates with her friend, Harry. She tells him that she scoured the gas station but found nothing. Instead, she heard a creature hiding in the false ceiling of the building. Harry asks her if she managed to find some food, but Juliet shares that she got some gum and salt, which is not nearly enough to feed their group of 39 people. Juliet then tells the man that she'll take a shortcut back to their base, in a hurry to end their conversation since her battery's running low. Harry advises her to return before it's dark. As Juliet is heading back home, she comes across an RV standing in the middle of nowhere. She decides to check it out, in the hopes of finding something. She takes her gun and gets out of the vehicle. As she moves towards the RV, she spots fresh bloodstains and hears labored breathing sounds. Finally, she comes across an injured man, bleeding profusely. The two exchanged a heated argument. Pointing her gun at the stranger, Juliet demands to know where the creature went, to which the old man replies that he's managed to lock it inside the RV. Juliet then learns from him that there are also canned goods inside his vehicle, and as she's about to go inside, the man requests that she end his suffering. He says he doesn't want to be eaten by a monster, or, as he calls it, a reaper, but a cold Juliet says that she won't waste a bullet on him. Unconcerned by the scene before her eyes, Juliet tells the man that if he really wants to expire, he can do so by removing his hand from his wound, because the loss of blood will end his suffering. But if he wants to survive, she'll take him to her group. Having wasted enough time already, Juliet enters the RV and fights the Reaper. We hear gunshots, windows shattering, and the vehicle starts shaking. The creature starts yelling as Juliet begins to fight it off. But in the end, Juliet slaughters the creature. Exhausted and spent, Juliet gets out of the RV and finds the old man's corpse on the ground, before taking all his valuables and stock of canned food. Now back on the road, Juliet quietly drives as she stares at a picture of herself with a man. However, the photo is suddenly blown away by the wind, causing Juliet to be distracted and lose control of her vehicle when she tries to retrieve it. As a result, the car flips over multiple times, before Juliet blacks out. In a flashback, we are taken to years before the apocalyptic event. We hear thunder crashing and rain falling as Juliet is seen standing in an art gallery. She's eating a bag of chips and looking aimlessly at a painting. The gallery owner, Jack, approaches Juliet and asks her if she likes the painting, Bacon. Confused, and not getting what he means, Juliet answers him by saying that she's a vegetarian. Laughing at her innocence, Jack tells her that the painting she's looking at was created by an artist named Francis Bacon. To cover up her stupidity, Juliet tells him that she already knows the artist. But Jack responds to it by calling her a vegetarian and a liar. He asks her why she is in the gallery, as she doesn't seem to enjoy the art in the room. Juliet tries her best to avoid Jack and end the conversation, but he seems persistent. Finally, she admits that she is only there since it's raining outside, which Jack doesn't really mind. In fact, he claims he is thankful to God for making it rain today. Hearing the cheesy line, Juliet bursts out laughing. She tries her best to leave the place, before Jack can ask her anything else. But the constant, heavy rain interrupts her plans. As it continues to rain, Jack urges an uninterested Juliet to look at the beautiful artwork around her, asking her to open her eyes. Back in the present, Juliet regains consciousness and opens her eyes, just as she hears Jack's voice. Her bones start cracking, and she screams loudly. Juliet has suffered an open fracture in her leg. The bone is protruding out of the flesh at an odd angle, and her leg is stuck in the steering wheel of the vehicle. Then she takes a deep breath and looks at her surroundings. Juliet also realizes that she's lost her gun, seeing it a few feet away from her. She then tries to call for help using her radio, but fails to get any signal. And with the Reapers more active at night, she must quickly find a way to retrieve her gun. With a makeshift pole, Juliet reaches for her pistol and almost gets it, only to fail after the rod split. At this point, Juliet is in a precarious situation. Her leg is trapped, her bone broken, and her body bruised, not to mention she is at an unknown location without any protection. In another flashback, Juliet leaves the gallery with Jack and eats while walking down the street. She asks Jack if it's normal for him to accompany a complete stranger in the middle of his work. Jack replies by saying that he doesn't do it very often, and most of the people who come to his art exhibition are just there for free food and drinks. He then makes a joke by telling her that the food she's eating has meat in it. Of course, being a vegetarian, Juliet immediately spits out what she's eating, but doesn't get mad when she realizes Jack is only kidding. He then invites Juliet to his home, located near to the gallery. Juliet accepts his offer and visits the apartment. She is amazed at the beautiful and well-organized place. There's no doubt that Jack is very rich, and his place speaks volumes about his wealth. Jack asks Juliet if she wants to have some tea or coffee, but she hints that she'd like something a little stronger. As Jack prepares the drink, Juliet examines the decor in the apartment. She finds some drawings and is flabbergasted by the sight. Jack tells her that the portraits are of an ex-friend. Changing the topic, he brings some French cheese and tells Juliet to try it. Juliet is taken aback by how good the cheese tastes, and the two get into a conversation. Jack tells her that he came from Paris for the sake of his work. Juliet, on the other hand, shares that she doesn't have a very good relationship with her family. Although Jack is extremely friendly and kind, Juliet finds it hard to open up to him. She even refuses to tell him her name when he asks, and suddenly insists on leaving, but after some convincing, she eventually gives in and tells him her name. In the present, Juliet tries to free her injured leg by moving the steering wheel. She uses all her strength to move the steering and tries to muffle her screams. Her pain is agonizing, and her bones start cracking. Finally, she manages to get them out. After looking at the extent of her injury, Juliet starts making a tourniquet for herself. She then washes her wound with alcohol and braves the excruciating pain, pushing her protruding bone back into place. In a flashback, we see Jack chatting with a woman in a lavish bar. Suddenly, his eyes go to Juliet, dressed elegantly in a white dress and drinking with an old man. Jack is stunned by her beauty, and soon Juliet notices his stare and the two gaze at each other. While Jack looks lovingly at her, Juliet simply ignores him. Soon, the other man tells Juliet that they should head out. Deeply curious, Jack follows Juliet and the guy outside, where he sees him paying Juliet in exchange for a mysterious substance. Jack watches as Juliet refuses to be kissed by the man, and upon following her, he learns that she is a dealer. Finally, Jack confronts Juliet, who tells him to come upstairs to her apartment. She knocks at her own apartment, and a strange man appears. This man is another dealer to whom she's indebted, and he has taken over her place. Juliet gives the man some money to leave her home. She then enters the apartment, but Jack is shocked to see the poor state in which she's living. Her one-room apartment is in a mess, but Juliet tries to break the ice by offering him tea. The two sit down, and Juliet starts smoking. Jack tries to explain that he couldn't get her number the last time they met, so when he saw her in the bar, he couldn't help but follow her. Meanwhile, Juliet is frustrated and tired. Her eyes get watery, and she snaps at Jack, asking him what he really wants from her. Jack tells her that he just wanted to see her again. He even tries to offer Juliet some help, but she adamantly refuses and orders him to leave. Jack then feels bad for following Juliet home, and once she injects herself with something, he realizes that the woman he likes is a too. Disappointed, Jack finally leaves Juliet's apartment. After that, we're taken back to the present, where Juliet binds her wound and fixes her radio to make a call to Harry, informing him she's injured. Juliet is utterly frustrated that no one is responding to her, so she shouts loudly to express her anger. But this catches the attention of a nearby Reaper, who starts approaching her. To protect herself, Juliet quickly crawls out of the car to retrieve her gun. Then she remains quiet as she watches the Reaper, ready to shoot it in case it sees her. However, the silence is shattered by Harry's call, so Juliet is forced to throw her radio outside to distract the creature. Juliet is almost sure that the Reaper will find her, but the monster suddenly hears another Reaper from a distance and walks away, leaving Juliet relieved. Now alone, Juliet replaces her bullets with new ones. Back in the past, a battered Juliet visits Jack in his apartment. Jack doesn't even ask what happened, and just cleans her up, tending to her wounds before leaving her in a room to sleep. The next morning, Juliet thanks Jack and joins him for breakfast. Juliet takes a bite, but stops eating, saying she isn't hungry. Jack tries to lighten the mood by making a few jokes, and asking her if she wants to talk about what happened. Jack opens up to Juliet about his past, saying he struggled for a while in America after his parents' passing, but managed to adapt, telling Juliet maybe she could do the same. Unsure, Juliet asks Jack if she could walk around the block to get some air, but Jack knows she only needs a fix. Offended, Juliet tries to leave, only to find that the elevator won't work. She then demands Jack let her go, but Jack refuses and firmly tells her she'll stay with him until she's clean. Enraged, Juliet starts throwing a fit and breaking Jack's stuff, but Jack isn't intimidated and hugs her tightly until she calms down. Eventually, he leans in and kisses her. In the present apocalyptic era, Juliet throws some glow sticks outside to see if there are any Reapers around. When nothing happens, Juliet slowly walks towards her radio, still aware of her surroundings. Suddenly, Juliet hears a sound from behind, so she throws more glow sticks in different directions until she finds the Reaper on top of her car. Juliet then shoots the creature and returns to her vehicle, where she quietly waits for the Reaper to follow. The Reaper appears from behind and yanks the window cover before reaching for Juliet's foot. Struggling to break free, Juliet starts the car and presses down the accelerator, causing the wheels to move and hurting the monster. Juliet once again waits for the Reaper, firing a couple of shots when she sees it running, unaware that it's already inside the vehicle behind her. Startled, Juliet shoots the Reaper and sends it fleeing, before attempting to fix her radio with her shaking hands. All her strength and courage are gone, and Juliet feels absolutely helpless. She then tries to drink some alcohol to calm her nerves, but she realizes her flask is empty. In another flashback, Jack and Juliet are seen moving into their new house. Juliet is delighted to be with Jack, but at the same time is nervous about the changes in their lives, so Jack gently touches her face to make her smile. He tells Juliet that his mother used to do the same thing to make him happy whenever he was down. Jack then shows her the room their future child would have, but Juliet isn't sure she'd be a good mother and make their son or daughter happy. It seems that Juliet is still haunted by the ghosts of her past, and she cannot trust herself to be a mother. However, Jack isn't worried about that, for he believes the most important thing they need to do is try to make things work. He doesn't pressure her, but he is aware that Juliet needs time to recover from her trauma. Before exploring the other parts of the house, Jack asks Juliet to say she loves him, and while she doesn't say it directly, he surely could feel it. Later on, Juliet reluctantly informs Jack she is pregnant, making the man thrilled. Unfortunately, Juliet gives birth to a stillborn baby, and the couple have to endure the pain of going home to an empty nursery room. Back in Juliet's depressing reality, she finally manages to fix her radio and reaches Harry, sharing her situation and location with him. However, Juliet and Harry don't really understand each other because of the poor signal, and Juliet only hears him talking about a locator beacon. After their conversation, Juliet gets the beacon and tries her best to follow the instructions in its manual. When the beacon finally works, Juliet starts barricading windows, only to realize that a Reaper is waiting for her outside. The creature attempts to get inside the vehicle as Juliet presses her foot against the window cover, eventually leaving after getting its fingers hurt. Then Juliet secures the cover with a rod and prepares to shoot, while the creature repeatedly hits her vehicle from different directions. Suddenly, Juliet gets a call from Harry and informs him she's being attacked by a Reaper, so his friend instructs her to use her flashlight on it. Harry is sure the Reaper will go away, since they hate bright lights, but Juliet tells him her flashlight is broken. Now that Harry and his company are about to rescue Juliet, she only needs to wait a little longer. But the creature is far from giving up on trying to get to Juliet, and breaks the car's windscreen. Now exposed, Juliet turns on her headlights and finally drives the monster away. Juliet then calls Harry once the Reaper is gone, and asks him when they'll arrive, but the man apologetically tells her she won't be rescued until sunrise. In the past, Jack scolds Juliet for always running away. He is so sick of being worried about her whenever she goes missing, but Juliet won't listen to Jack. She then tells Jack to admit to her that he blames her for the loss of their baby, but the man professes that isn't true. Juliet is hysterical at this point. She starts blaming Jack for everything. She tells him that he was the one who pushed her into having a child, even though she was not ready to start a family. Despite her anger and blaming, Jack doesn't say anything, which makes Juliet even more upset as she can't comprehend what's going on inside his head. Finally, Jack gets out of the car. He wants to stop this nonsense and intends on taking the subway, but Juliet is not ready to end the discussion. Jack finally admits to Juliet that her being a junkie before is the reason their baby lost its life. He lets his frustration boil over, saying that she doesn't care about her health or fitness, and that's the reason they couldn't save their newborn child. Jack ends their relationship before walking away, and as Juliet cries, she yells at him that she doesn't need him. Hours later, after having a few drinks in a bar, Juliet learns from the news that there was an attack at the subway station, involving more than 30 people. She then answers the calls that she'd been ignoring, horrified upon finding out that Jack is among those who got hurt, and quickly leaves. Back to the present, Juliet hears a vehicle pass by, and honks the horn in hopes of getting its attention. A bike then stops, and the man who approaches her promises he'll help her. Unfortunately, the man is a cannibal who is determined to eat Juliet, but as he attempts to stab her, the Reaper shows up and attacks the cannibal. Then the Reaper mercilessly crushes the cannibal's skull, sending his friends leaving in a hurry. After watching the Reaper feast on the cannibal, Juliet checks the number of bullets she has left, slowly placing the gun under her chin. At this stage, Juliet has no other option left, so she contemplates ending, but suddenly she gets a memory of how Jack looked in the hospital on the night of the subway attack. His larynx and trachea were burned because of the gas used in the attack, leaving him unable to speak. When Juliet enters Jack's room, she immediately apologizes to him for what happened. Although Jack can only touch the thick plastic separating them using a whiteboard and a marker, he weakly tells Juliet he loves her and asks her never to give up. As Juliet thinks of his words, she suddenly puts the gun down. This memory gives Juliet a much-needed boost, and she takes a deep breath and thinks about the next strategy to get her out of this mess. Determined to survive, Juliet takes a flare and 2 fuel containers out of the vehicle, dousing one with gasoline. She then lights the flare and waves it around to lure the Reaper out, and when it does, she leads it to the container she'd prepared a while ago. When the creature stands on the fuel-soaked ground, Juliet shoots the fuel to blast it with the explosion, but the creature survives and escapes. Once again in danger, Juliet keeps her guard up and looks for the Reaper, unaware that it's behind her. The Reaper then grabs Juliet and causes her to drop her gun, so she quickly crawls back inside the car. However, the creature grabs her leg and tries to pull her out, making her wound bleed a lot. Juliet then continues fighting back, but the Reaper pulls her out of the vehicle and throws her to the ground. With the creature approaching her, Juliet uses the gun she's managed to pick up and shoots the Reaper twice, crying once she realizes her problem is over. As Juliet looks to the stars, the bitter memory of Jack's passing suddenly fills her mind. At that time in the hospital, Juliet remembers how she felt the weakest. She couldn't believe that one person who loved her and cared for her was gone. Jack was the only person who treated her like she was worthy of everything, and due to her stupidity and rage, she lost him. As the sun begins to rise, the creature suddenly starts converging on the ground. Juliet hears a whizzing sound, and soon the creature gets up and crawls towards Juliet. It holds her foot, and Juliet loads her gun to shoot it, but fails to do so, as she has no bullets left. Meanwhile, the Reaper gets on top of her, and Juliet has no strength left in her to fight. She has given up all hope, and is aware that she cannot survive anymore. Hence, she closes her eyes to accept her imminent end. But something strange happens. The Reaper struggles to move its arms, and, with shaking hands, gently touches her face. This gesture reminds Juliet of Jack, and how he used to do the same thing to her face. The realization hits her hard, and she is sure that the Reaper is none other than Jack, and he has been trying all this time to save her from other Reapers and people with bad intentions. Juliet then recalls the day she met Jack for the first time in the art gallery. When Jack asks her if she believes in fate, Juliet replies that she doesn't believe in God or fate. At that point, Jack tells her that the universe has a way of bringing people together. Juliet, who is skeptical, asks Jack what he would do if she left the art gallery. Would he still believe in fate or not? Answering her question, Jack says that he will close the art gallery and walk her home. Hearing this, Juliet is shocked and challenges him, saying that he is just saying it and he won't do it. But Jack takes up the challenge and announces that he will close the gallery. Back in the present, Juliet hugs Jack and starts crying, remembering his words. She cannot believe that he was right, and fate brought them closer once again. She wastes no time and confesses her love to Jack. She tells him how much she loves him, and then embraces him once again. Soon, we see Juliet lifting her gun. It seems that now that she's finally found him, she is never going to leave his side. And even if they cannot be together in this world, at least they can go to the afterlife together.